There's an underrated technique that I use in practically all of the apps that I work on that I don't know if everyone does or if everyone knows how to do it, but that is creating a seed script for your database. What this does is automatically populate a local development environment with good usable data in order to work on developing your app. My team and I are working on a new product. Here's a sneak peek here. By the way, if you're interested, you can go to usebaton.com and sign up for an invite. It always helps to learn by example, so while I'm working on this app, I thought I'd walk you through a real-life seed script that I'm using to populate data. In this app, we use Prisma, and it's actually a monorepo with PNPM workspaces. I need to do a video on that soon. I've been really liking this. But I've created in the package.json file a seed script that simply runs node and calls a seed file. So what is in this seed file? Well, I have a few helper functions up top, and I'm going to skip those for now. Primarily in this seed file is a main function that's called at the bottom. And at the top of this function, first and foremost, I have some gut checks in here, just in case this gets run on production. I absolutely do not want this to run on production, because this does some destructive actions. So I have a couple of different checks in here, and depending on the app, I might have several just to make sure that this, in fact, isn't production, doesn't look like production, doesn't quack like production, is not production. So first, right up top, I check the node.env environment variable to make certain that it is either development or staging. If not, I throw an error. And then on top of that, even if the environment variable is set to one of those values, I make sure that the workspace count, which is our top level object in this app, is not more than 3. If it's more than 3, you might be on production. So this is a great way to do some gut checks at the top of your seed file. Because the very next step, I start truncating data. So I will truncate the users table and the workspaces table. And those will actually cascade to the other tables that relate to it. Then we get into writing data. So in this case, I create one user for each member of our team. And this is just simply using the Prisma library to create this via our database. So I have 3 users up here. Then I create our workspace. What's great about Prisma is you can do a lot of nested creates in here. So for instance, I'm creating our workspace up top here, simply giving it a name, a slug, the user who owns this. But then even inside of that, I'm able to create some nested objects. So I'm creating many accounts that relate to that workspace. Workspace and account are related database tables, and then also some labels. So this product that we're building is an issue tracker / project management tool. So labels will be a familiar concept. Think of things like bug, feature, wish list, things like that. So while I do have some hard-coded data in here like bug, feature, wish list, I also want to generate fake data along the way. And for that, I'm using the library Faker. Faker is a great library for generating all sorts of fake data. In fact, let's take a look. Head on over to fakerjs.dev and tap on Browse API. And in here, you can see all sorts of fake data that you can generate. So you can generate anything from lorem ipsum in lines, paragraphs, sentences, text, words, slugs. Slug is particularly useful, especially for things like what I'm doing here, where workspaces have a URL and I want a slug to identify it. But there's all sorts of things in here, from random numbers to people, first names, last names, job titles, prefixes, etc. You can generate animals if that's what you need, to phone numbers, to a variety of strings, including UUIDs, hexadecimal, to system items like fake file paths, fake MIME types, fake file types, fake IP addresses, fake vehicles, fake words, fake locations, fake dates, all sorts of things that you'd commonly see within an application, and I'll show you that in our seed file. They also have a variety of helpers in here, which becomes really handy. One that you might overlook is this handy one called weighted array element. So in this case, let's say, it's a little hard to see here, but faker.helpers.weighted array element. Let's say sometimes you want it to be sunny, sometimes you want it to be rainy, Sometimes you want it to be snowy. And you pass in weights here, so 1 for snowy, 4 for rainy, 5 for sunny. So 50% of the time it'll be sunny, 40% of the time it'll be rainy, and 10% of the time it'll be snowy. So that's an example of a handy function. Back on over to the seed script, we can see how I'm using these. So in our workspace, again, that's my top level object here. Within that, you can have many different accounts. Think of this like clients the company may have or products they're working on. The account name, I'm using faker.company to generate a fake company name. And then I have my own little helper function to create a short abbreviated name from that. And then down in labels, I have some hard-coded labels here, so they make sense to me. But I want to assign each of those labels a color. And so I'm able to use the faker.internet.color helper to generate random colors. One of the benefits of using fake data like this is that every time I seed my system, which is often, there are a lot of times that I'll just wipe everything out, start over. I can see different company names, I can see different colors, so I can see are there some assumptions that I've made in the user interface as far as the links, as far as particular colors, as far as the design, where some sorts of data won't work. Moving down here, I also have people. So people in our case is the mapping object between workspaces and users. So people you might think of as the member object. So I'm creating some people objects hidden here in the database. And then the heart of any issue tracker is the issue itself. So in here, I'm simply using Lodash and saying, I want to do this 100 times. And I'm using Prisma, calling a create many to create a bunch of records at once. So for 100 times, I'm generating an ID using the workspace I created above, finding a random array element out of the accounts I created. I'm using the faker get commit message as a issue title, which just ended up working well for our case. Description, I'm using faker.lorem.paragraph in order to create a description. And then here you go. Here's that weighted array element where I'm weighting different statuses for the issues. So I'm weighting heavy to backlog. Lots of us have pretty long backlogs, and as well as some other status. We have a special one in here called pickup, active, done, canceled, etc. I'm also weighting especially heavily to done because I want to assume that this workspace has gone through quite a few issues and I want most of the progress to already be done so we can test out the user interface for a workspace like that. Here you can see an example of faker.date. So I want to say a recent day out of the last 365 days, and then I'm generating a number for each of these issues. So you can see a mix here of the power of Prisma using the mass record creation functions, the create minis. You can see I'm combining Lodash just as a simple way to do something 100 times. And then I'm using a lot of the Faker API to help me generate fake data. And really this just continues on from here. I go through all of our data objects here from issues to something we call stages, which will end up being some of the secret sauce of Baton, all the way down to tasks, which is going to be our built-in task management within issues, comments, etc. In this app, I'm also utilizing an event log, or a way to keep track of a timeline of history for each of the issues in our app. So for some things, we do parallel writes to tables like issue label, which is our mapping table between issues and labels, and also an events table, which is the event log table. So when you're looking at an issue, you might want a timeline of that issue, when labels were added and removed, when comments were created, when tasks were completed and added, things like that. So in my seed script, I'm writing to both of these manually to create a historical event log. Because this is all TypeScript or JavaScript, and you're not doing this in SQL, you can even call to the functions you're utilizing in the back end of your application. So we have something in here called sync priorities, which does some magic behind the scenes. So I'm utilizing this right inside of the seed script where it makes sense. Then finally at the very bottom is where I actually run the seed script. So I call the main function, which is everything you saw above. After the main function, I will disconnect from Prisma, If there happens to be an error, then we'll log that error and then we'll exit the process with a code of 1. So this is a sneak peek of what a seed script might look like in a real life application. The great thing about this is it's designed to be run over and over. It's something I can run at any time in just a few seconds. Anytime I want to wipe the slate clean or blow away all my Docker containers and start over, it makes it very easy to get started, especially when you're on a team, whether it's big or small. Seed script is a great way to get all the devs on the same page. So there you go, that's a sneak peek. If you're interested in this product, head over to usebaton.com. I'll be creating quite a few videos on some of the behind the scenes of building this product, the technical choices that we've made, how we take a product to production, and everything. If you have any questions or you have anything you'd like me to share, then drop a comment and I'll see what I can do. Anyway, that's it for today. Hope you have a great one and I'll see you next time.